I slid into my husband's truck and opened the glove box. A tube of personal lubricant rolled into my palm. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I quietly swapped it for industrial grade superglue, wiped the cap, and set it back exactly where I found it. My name is Halimo. I'm 50. And this is our quiet southern street where porches glow at dusk and neighbors wave. Lately, the waving felt thinner. The hurt started at home. Trust fraying, family turning on itself, and the worst part was that the other woman wasn't a stranger. It was the daughter we adopted. I said nothing. What happened next did not stay indoors. It spilled across our lawn under porch lights and phone cameras until the neighbors dialed 911 and responders had to pull two people apart who should never have been together. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching, please like and subscribe to hear how suspicion became proof and how a woman who'd had enough chose resolve over rage. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. The truck door latched behind me and the street went back to small sounds. Porch lights humming, a TV 2 houses down, a dog tag tapping a bowl. I crossed the lawn with my hands steady and my jaw tight, like I was balancing a glass of water on my tongue. In the kitchen, I rinsed my fingers longer than I needed to, watching suds run thin. Dust, I told myself, not fear. Our bedroom lamp was low. I pulled back the quilt and there it was again. Cinnamon, not my eucalyptus rub, not the lavender spray I use for headaches. Warm sweet like kettle corn smoke clinging to a coat. It sat deep in my pillow, not his, recent, bold. I smoothed the sheet with my palm, slow circles. Who taught you to be so sure in my house? Who promised I wouldn't notice the difference between my life and the outline you're drawing around it? The floor creaked once. A car turned the corner and kept going. I slid out the small spiral I use for groceries and reminders. Fresh page, date, cinnamon, right pillow, underline. Tai Mihies for odd finance meeting. Time he texted, on my way. When Zeke's truth thins, his messages get formal, like he's reporting to a boss. I've read that shift for 25 years. In the laundry room, his shirt lay on the hamper, sleeves rolled quickly, cuffs twisted like he couldn't wait to get free. Under the bright bulb, I raised the collar, a faint warm smear. Not dirt, not mine. If I rubbed it, my mind would bargain with me, so I folded the shirt neatly and set it on the washer as if it might be asked to testify. Back in the hall, I eased open the dresser drawer that squeaks if you rush it. Receipts, spare wallet, a church program folded clean. In the margin of his handwriting, call Ray, boxed, not underlined. He never boxes anything. 2 squares means remember or hide in plain sight. I closed the drawer and waited until the house settled around me. The window threw my reflection back, scarf tied high, shoulders set. Mama used to say over a bowl of rising dough, don't chase, let it rise. It'll show you what it is. I sat at the table, opened the spiral again, and wrote the first question that mattered. When did the waving change? Our street waves. Lately, the waves clipped short and didn't reach the eyes. That started after Alyssa began letting herself in with a key I don't remember handing over. I wrote Alyssa. Key. The girl we raised when she was half grown, the girl I called our daughter. A key is a permission carved in metal. When did I give that permission and forget? A Tuesday 2 weeks back set itself on the table. I was rolling the trash can to the curb. Alyssa came up fast, eyes on her phone. She didn't knock. She slid a key in and stepped across my entry with a breezy, "Hey, Mama, that should have warmed me." It didn't. Her gaze checked the hallway like she was confirming nothing had been moved. I wrote a corridor glance and drew a thin arrow. My phone buzzed. A choir friend. Y'all okay? Saw Zeke by Blue Magnolia late. Blue Magnolia isn't on the way to anywhere. It's a destination with heavy booths and dim corners. My thumb hovered. Then I set the phone face down. In the pantry, we keep a shoebox labeled odds and ends, batteries, tape, a tiny flashlight, and the petty cash envelope for the soup kitchen. Lighter than it should have been. Not empty, just light enough to be a borrow. I counted. Off by $40. 40 isn't a felony. 40 is a test balloon. See if it floats, see who notices. I wrote $40 petty cash. I cracked the front door for air. Heat wrapped me, thick and soft. Down the block, Mrs. Whitman watered her ferns. She lifted a hand halfway. I remade our bed with the spare sheets, fresh cotton cool against my wrists. The cinnamon stayed ghostly in the room. I gathered the used pillowcases and tucked them into the washer. Do the next right thing. Count what can be counted. Next was the hallway drawer where we keep spare keys. Labeled, rubber capped, tidy, front, back, garage. One blank hook. My handwriting on the tape. Guest. Missing. I tried to remember the last time I saw it. A party? A repairman? A night we drove home late and promised we'd deal with it in the morning? Memory gave me nothing but the soft click of a door closing behind someone practiced. At dinner last Sunday, Zeke switched his fork to his left-hand mid-bite, a nervous tick he gets when his head is 3 rooms away. Alyssa said we about a plan that didn't include me. We already talked to the contractor, then smiled too fast and rewrote it. Zeke kept his phone face down and never flipped it back over. I wrote fork hand switch. We. Phone face down. The clock over the sink hit 11:07. He'd come in soon. Set his keys on the counter, kiss my temple, toss a thin story about budgets and a roof leak the guy will fix after rain. Peace never came that cheaply. I cleaned until the counters shone. I wiped doorknobs and light switches, not to race anything, just to keep my hands busy while my mind worked. I checked the street again. Porches glowing, moths circling, a runner's headlamp sliding by. From the sidewalk, my home looked ordinary. Ordinary is the easiest camouflage in the world. In the linen closet, I pressed my face to towels that smelled like detergent and cedar. Cool cotton steadied me. I thought of the trail I'd laid. Dates, times, the scent in the pillow, the key hook with its empty tooth, the missing 40, the sideways glances. I didn't ask God for revenge. I asked for clarity and a spine that would hold when the floor under my life shifted. Steps sounded on the walk. One set, light, quick. The lock scraped. Not the easy turn of a man who lives here, but the careful test of someone who doesn't want to wake a sleeper. The door opened an inch, then 2, and paused like the house was holding its breath. I didn't move. I let the hinge make its small, honest complaint. There's a line between what you know and what you can prove. I stood on it and picked up my spiral again. Who else has my key? When did I stop noticing? What changes first when truth walks in? The door whispered shut without a footstep. The night tucked itself back around the house. I wrote one more word and set my pen down. I woke before the sun and let the coffee drip slowly, one heartbeat at a time. The house held its quiet like a sealed envelope. I set my cup down, opened the junk drawer, and palmed the cheap blacklight pen Maya once gave me. Grandma, for catching snack thieves. Soft traps, not explosions. I marked one invisible dot on the bottom lip of the guest key hook, another along the edge of the hallway console drawer, and a thin swipe on the lid of a small velvet box I set on Zeke's nightstand with a blank card tucked under it. If anyone lifted it, just to peek, the oil in their fingers would carry the ink like a whisper. On my phone, I switched the doorbell camera to high alerts for the back steps and killed the chime so it wouldn't tattle. I propped a notebook by the sink and wrote a normal day on paper. Errands, soup kitchen pickup, choir, call insurance about roof. If anyone looked, my life would read steadily. At 8:17 a.m., while I rinsed travel mugs, the phone buzzed. Back door. Motion. Live view. Alyssa. Ponytail high. Gym bag on her shoulder. She cupped her hand to the glass, tried the knob. It gave. I'd locked it. It shouldn't. She hesitated, checked the yard like birds were witnesses, then reached under the mat and pulled a key that never lived there. My breath paused. She let herself in, walked straight to the hallway console like she knew the route, and was back out in 3 minutes with the bag sitting heavier on her shoulder. As she passed, her fingers brushed the guest hook. She didn't see the dot waiting for her skin. I laid the phone face down and stood still while the ground of what I believed tilted a degree. Alyssa has always been a door knocker. When did she become a key holder? When did my home turn into a corridor she moves through without checking for my eyes? At 9:03, another alert. Front door, motion. Zeke, navy cap, shoulders hunched like wind could lay him flat. He checked the porch, bent for the mail, slipped inside, and went straight down the hall. The velvet box sat there like a small door marked, "Not now." He lifted it with his palm, didn't open it, set it back, and smoothed the wood with his fingers like he could erase his own prints from a memory. When he turned, the hallway camera caught the heel of his hand. A faint glow under the spectrum our system sometimes reads as artifact. Not proof. Not yet. Enough to make my pulse throw a pebble at my ribs. I drove to the soup kitchen on Elm and signed for 2 crates of canned tomatoes and a sleeve of to-go bowls. Routine lets hands pray while the mouth stays quiet. Miss Hattie waved me into the side lot. "You look tired, baby." "Yo." I gave her the phrase "I'm fine" that keeps a day from cracking and slid her a bag of cornbread mix we keep stashed for her. At the church office, Deacon Ruth sorted receipts with her glasses low. "You dropping the forms, Halimo?" I set them down and asked, casual as I could. "You ever notice who's been grabbing the extra keys? Facilities?" She looked up slowly. "Why, something missing?" I shook my head. "Just making sure we're tidy." She tapped a pen. "Always a good idea," she said, eyes flicking toward the hall, like she could see through the drywall. I took my copy and left before my face told on me. Grocery store, milk, bread, ginger. My cart knew the path. In personal care, I paused at the end cap lined with wellness oils, promises printed soft, cinnamon, vanilla, heat. I reached, then didn't. Hands back on the push bar. "Keep moving." In line, a man slid his receipt into his glove box through an open window, and my stomach shifted for reasons I didn't love. Glove box. When did I last open ours? Back home, the counters gleamed under a clean dishcloth. The velvet box still waited on Zeke's nightstand, the blank card peeking like a tongue. I wrote only my name, Halimo, and slid it beneath the lid. No hearts, no question marks. Seeing my own handwriting steady on that paper made my back straighten without trying. At noon, Alyssa texted, "Hey, Mama, you need me to drop off those flyers at school?" Polite, useful. 3 blinking dots hovered before I could answer, like she was still typing things she decided not to say. "All set, baby. Thank you." I sent the message. She tapped a heart. The phone felt heavier than its weight. I carried laundry to the backyard line and let the sun do its simple work. The doorbell flagged. "Visitor, front." Mrs. Whitman stood on the steps holding a small bag of lemons. "For your tea," she said. Her eyes read my face the way Southern women read a sky, quietly, deeply. "You call me if you need anything heavy carried." We both knew she wasn't talking about boxes. Inside, I checked the hallway console. The guest hook kept its tiny bruise of a dot. The drawer edge gleamed faintly under black light. On the velvet box's lid, a thin crescent of glow, lift and set, not open. People announce themselves even when they whisper. I made a sandwich I didn't want and watched the crust go dry. The AC kicked on, steady breath evening out the house. Calm isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing where to set it so it doesn't roll into the fire. By late afternoon, the sky got that cotton look that means thunder at night. I sorted mail. Coupon flyers, a church newsletter, and 2 envelopes from the bank addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Z. Johnson. One thick, one thin. The thin one. Notice of change to joint access. New card issued. I did not have a new card. I put my finger on the date, yesterday, took a photo, saved it to a folder named House. At 5:06, back door, motion pinged again. Alyssa, this time in a sundress, hair loose. She checked her reflection in the glass like it was a mirror. She didn't try the knob. She knocked, 3 small taps, and waited, eyes to the side, like she was listening for her cue. The door opened an inch. Zeke's arm flashed into the frame and pulled her in quickly. The camera cut it off, but I saw enough. His hand hovered at the small of her back before jerking away like he remembered we live in a world with neighbors and lenses. My throat went dry. I reached for water and knocked the glass against the sink. Just a tick, just a true little bell. Evening slid in. I steamed a pot of rice because feeding yourself is a way to declare you plan to keep going. I set a place for one and counted bites like beads on a cord. My mother's quilt brightened the chair back, steady as always. I turned the doorbell chime back on. Loud. If the house needed to speak, I wanted to hear its whole mouth. Dishes done, I pulled a fresh page. Today's facts. Alyssa used a key from under mat that never held one. Zeke handled the velvet box but didn't open it. Faint glow on his hand. A bank card was issued without my permission. Back door open and shut for someone who knocked like she knew the rhythm. I stared until the list rearranged itself into something colder than anger. A pattern. I slid the notebook away and stood in the garage doorway. The truck sat pointed at the street, clean outside, a little mess in the middle console, like always. I didn't climb in, not yet. I listened to the house settle and the crickets tune up for the night, and I let one question rise exactly as big as it wanted. What's in his glove box now? I picked the quietest hour of the afternoon, the kind where the neighborhood slows and even the cicadas take a breath. Zeke's truck sat nose out in the garage, sun shimming along the windshield. I stood at the door frame, listened to the house say nothing, then stepped onto the cool concrete and opened the driver's side with a careful pull. No reason to rush. The cab smelled like coffee and cedar from the freshener he likes. A church bulletin slumped under the visor with last Sunday's date. I slid into the seat, steadied my breath like before blood work, and pressed the glove box button. The latch popped like a small throat clearing. There it was, wedged against the manual. A tube that had no business living with tire warranties and registration. The label promised heat and comfort in candy words. My hand hovered. We haven't needed anything like that in a long time. The story around it was. I took one photo for my records. The angle was wide enough to catch the manual and the nick in the plastic lip, wide enough no one could ask later, "Are you sure?" I lifted the tube and felt its weight, heavy enough to say recently. Outside, a basketball thudded. A delivery truck beeped in reverse. A line drew itself across my chest. Steady, thin. There are moments you don't get back. The breath right before you act. I sat with it long enough to learn its shape. I wasn't trying to burn down a life. I wanted a truth that wouldn't wriggle free the second I touched it. Rage makes a mess. Resolve sets a table. I swapped the tube for another that looked the same to any hurried eye, then returned it label forward as if the world were still in order. The glove box closed with a clean click. My hand stayed steady. My heart learned a new beat. Back in the kitchen, I opened my spiral. Truck, glove box, photo. Then I placed the next pieces like plates before supper. I added a late shift on the family calendar, soup kitchen, after hours. I texted Miss Hattie that I'd be working longer than usual and asked if she needed anything from the store. True words pointed in a direction I could live with. I charged my phone, set the ringer to loud, checked the portable battery, poured coffee I didn't want, and sat with it anyway. Heat slows people down. When Zeke texted at 4:11, budget review, went long, home late. I answered, "I'll be out late too." He liked it with a blue heart. I walked through the rooms I keep. Not an inspection, more like a rehearsal. The bed made tight, sink empty, trash out. I left the living room lamp on low so the house wouldn't look startled at dusk. No new traps, no tricks, just light where it belongs. At 6:02, I carried a casserole to Mrs. Whitman's and rang twice. She unhooked the chain and waved me in like she'd been waiting for that knock. "You read my mind," she said, taking the dish. Lemon and thyme cut through her hallway. I asked if I could keep her company till choir. She said, "Sit yourself down. Tea?" We settled by her front window, 2 chairs angled to see my porch without looking like we were watching it. There are bad ways to tell neighbors your business. There are better ways to let them be present without making them carry it. I chose better. We talked small, trash pickup cuts, her cousin's hip, while a quiet drum inside me counted time. Waiting stretches minutes. The cable box clock held its stubborn green 7:18, 7:41. I breathed slow enough to taste it. I wasn't praying for a specific moment. I was promising to be awake when it showed. My phone chimed a calendar ping I'd set. Leave house, late shift. I didn't leave. I let the sound confirm the story that the people in my house would rely on without question. Alibis can be ugly. I made mine clean. The truth of it, I was not home. And yet I was more present to that door than I'd been in months. Zeke texted again, "Don't wait up." I answered nothing. Some threads you let fray on their own. Mrs. Whitman refilled my tea and handed me a throw for my knees like she felt the weather only she could sense. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't give advice. Across the street, porch lights blinked on. Cars turned in. A girl with braids hopped double Dutch while her brother timed her on a phone. The normalcy cooled the back of my neck. I was about to pass through something I could not undo. I know the weight of that. I checked the phone, battery full, volume high, door alerts on. I told myself a hymn. I'm not breaking anything. I'm noticing what's already broken. At 8:57, a shadow crossed my porch light, enough to trigger motion, and moved on without knocking. A neighbor walking a dog, maybe. I let the alert fade and listened for the hinge sigh I know by heart. Nothing yet. I wrapped both hands around the mug until the heat soaked my wrists. My chest went quiet. The plan wasn't clever. It didn't need to be. People decide who they are in quiet rooms long before they announce it on front lawns. All I did was move my chair to where I could hear the announcement. I pictured the glove box closing around that swapped tube, the way it felt definite under my fingers. I pictured hands reaching for what they believe is theirs. Between those pictures, I saw the woman I want next. Not perfect, not vengeful, bright as a porch light, and just as hard to pretend you can't see. At 9:32, my phone buzzed. Home by 11? Another reminder I'd set for myself. I dismissed it and stayed. The street settled. Crickets, a late train, and the clicks a house makes when it exhales. I didn't need to stare at the door to know it held an answer. The only question left was when it would open its mouth. I thanked Mrs. Whitman for the tea and asked if I might sit a while longer. As long as you need, she said, patting my hand, her palm dry and warm as paper in the sun. I inched my chair closer to the window, nudged the volume up one more notch, and laid my hand flat on the table so I'd feel it hum when the house finally spoke. I didn't go home. I sat in Mrs. Whitman's front room with the lamp low and the TV muted, our chairs angled just enough to see my porch without making a theater of it. The late air slid through her screen warm as bathwater, and the lemon thyme from the casserole faded to a whisper. I kept my phone face up, volume high, alerts on, palms dry on my knees. Waiting is work. It takes muscles folks don't see. At 9:48, the doorbell app blinked. Back steps, motion. I let my eyes slide to the screen like I was checking the weather. The camera framed the downpour chain and the rag rug by the threshold. A figure traced the fence line, doubled back, then walked casually, like she had nothing to hide. Alyssa, hair down, a light dress that pretended not to know it was night. She held her phone at chin height, screen lighting her face in a small private moon. She paused at the mat, hesitated, then reached under. A key that never lived there came up glittering with grit. 5 seconds later, Zeke texted, "Budget notes at Ray's, running late." The live view showed his arm reach out, catch her wrist, draw her in as if the hallway were an elevator and his thumb had the button. The door sealed. Silence pooled. Mrs. Whitman didn't move, her hands folded like a prayer that remembered it was human. My chest cooled like stepping into a church on a heatwave Sunday. "You're not breaking anything," I told myself. "You're witnessing." The mic in the back hall camera is small. It eats big noises and leaves little ones. Cloth on cloth, a heel, then soft on the runner, 2 sets of steps across the wood, a murmur. I couldn't make out words, just the shape, his lower, her higher, both pressed flat, like they were pressing themselves into the seams of a room. My name didn't belong there. I let that knowledge sit next to me in the chair. They went quiet. Houses have signatures. You learn them the way you learn a spouse's breathing at 2 a.m. The upstairs HVAC clicked. The fridge kicked. The faint give of a mattress near the foot. My home spoke in familiar notes arranged in a song I had not chosen. I tucked the hurt under my knee and listened like I'd listen for a kettle I didn't want to boil over. 10 minutes, 15. I counted breaths to 5 and started again. The tube I'd held earlier flashed in mind, the cool plastic, the weight like a roll of coins. The glove box had closed with an ordinary click. The plan wasn't fancy. Let the truth show itself. I didn't need to drag it by the hair, a muffled laugh, hers. My fingers curled, then lay flat. What was I doing 2 doors down while my house practiced a lie? I heard my mother smoothing a tablecloth. "Lay it straight, baby. If it's crooked, your plate will remind you all night." My plate had been wobbling for months. It wasn't the food. A soft thud traveled through the mic, something set down too hard on the nightstand. Silence sucked in behind it, then a woman's breath, sharp as cut glass, not pleasure, surprise, a strangled, "Wait!" A man's voice, hushed, panicked, trying to make pillows into walls. The mic chewed the consonants. Pain still got through. Another sound, wet, sticking wrong, a cry, then another, higher. "Don't move, don't..." The sentence broke. The next sound wasn't a word. It was the kind of throat sound made when it tries to call for help and remembers there is none. My hand found my phone like it had been waiting there all day. I tapped 911, one ring. 911, what's your emergency? Calm, practiced. I kept my voice level so it would carry. Send responders to my address. I gave the street and number. 2 adults in medical distress. Possible lacerations. They cannot separate. I didn't say how I knew or who they were. I answered every question like reading a recipe. Access points, pets, none. Weapons, none. Allergies, unknown. Whether I could unlock the front door. Yes. And meet them outside. Yes. Stay on the line, she said. And I did, describing the house. The easiest route to the back hall. The latch that sticks in summer. Mrs. Whitman stood when I hung up. Porch light, she said, and moved quickly, sure. Her light bloomed steadily across her steps. I stepped to her window rug and listened. Inside my house, a man cursed low. A woman sobbed into cotton that wouldn't forgive. Sirens ride the edge of town like weather. You hear them long before you see red. The first hint reached Gu, and a second kind of calm took hold, the calm of handoff. Some nights belonged to neighbors, some belonged to professionals. I stood, slid my phone into my pocket, and smoothed the front of my blouse. My knees held. My voice was ready for names, dates, keys, and where the spare hides. I had my list. The app pinged again. Front porch, motion. Our motion lights snapped on, bathing the entry in cheap daylight. A moth fluttered into frame and away. No one opened the door. My house waited, like a person aware that strangers were about to listen to its next sentence. Mrs. Whitman came back and set a hand on my forearm, a quiet pressure that said here without crowding me. I checked the phone. Line clear, volume high, battery full. Across the glass, my face looked older than it had this morning and steadier. Not righteous, present. That was the difference that mattered. Inside my head, I repeated the instruction that had carried me. Notice. Don't narrate. The sirens grew loud enough to rattle the window. Red rolled around the last corner before our street. Somewhere in my house, someone tried again to pull free and learned what stuck really means. I didn't flinch. I let the noise come. I let the night turn its head toward my porch. Here they come, Mrs. Whitman said, voice low and firm, the way a nurse names a contraction right before the baby crowns. I nodded once and stepped toward her door to meet what I had already met in my mind. Blue lights washed the street as the first engine nosed to the curb and the ambulance slid in behind it. I stepped from Mrs. Whitman's doorway and raised my hand. I'm the caller, I said, steady. The captain nodded. Ma'am, we're going to make entry. Front door unlocked, porch light on. I gave the layout, hall left, stairs straight, boots echoed, radios clicked. Someone set a medic bag down with practiced care. The EMT with the clipboard asked, Any pets, weapons? No and no. Anyone else inside? 2, I said. It didn't tremble. Neighbors drifted, phones held chest high. The night smelled of cut grass, diesel, and lemon cleaner. I kept my shoulders still and my hands apart so I wouldn't wring them into knots I'd have to live with. Inside, a barked, hold still, then sheet ripping, a bitten-off gasp. The captain called for saline, trauma shears, and a handheld light. A medic brushed past me, carrying a folded blanket. We've got them, he said. A line and a ledger, nothing more. Mrs. Whitman pressed a glass of water into my hand and stood just behind my shoulder. Breathe, she whispered, and I did. The front door framed our living room like a stage set. My mother's quilt is on the chair back. The lamp was on low, a soft circle that didn't care about shame or spectacle. More neighbors came, and Mr. Ray from 2 houses down. He lifted a hand and then let it fall. The EMT with the clipboard asked for names. I gave them. Allergies. Unknown. Medications. Likely, I said. His are in the hall cabinet. He nodded, sent a firefighter for the bin. I stood. From the bedroom came a sound. On 3, the captain said. 3 voices answered. They brought them down the hall under sheets. The sheets were for dignity. Phones rose. Alyssa stared, jaw tight, eyes salted. Zeke's mouth worked, chewing an apology. The crew moved as one. Hands set, steps measured. They were here to separate, stabilize, and transport. Night went quiet. 2 firefighters flanked the stretcher, guiding it around the swing table. The captain scanned the porch boards, then he glanced at me. Ma'am, can we set them here a second? Yes, I said. They positioned the stretchers by the rail, a closeness made clinical. An EMT with kind business-like hands spoke low to Alyssa and then to Zeke, describing exactly what would happen. Solvent, gauze, gentle traction, breathing through the sting. We'll pause when you say. Someone unspooled saline like ribbon. Someone snapped open a brown bottle. The sharp scent hit the night. I watched. I thought of the cinnamon that didn't belong to me, the invisible ink at the drawer edge. All of it led here to this old pine where consequence did its math. Okay, the EMT said, 1 breath in, a hiss. Good, next one, and we'll move a hair. Alyssa's fingers clutched the sheet, nails whitening. Zeke stared at the light. The captain counted. The text worked. A seam of sound, tear, release, a low groan. There, someone said. They shifted focus, steady voices, each small step careful. You're doing fine. We're almost there. Tell us when to pause. No one rushed. No one mocked. Across the street, neighbors stood in socks and robes. I saw Mrs. Miller cross herself and Mr. Ray look at his feet. Everyone had a piece of the story, and nobody wanted to own it. The second release came with an ugly sound. Alyssa breathed in a high, keening register and pressed her mouth flat. Zeke's eyes flooded and didn't spill. Got it, a medic said softly. They moved fast. Ointment, pads, careful tape, a blanket. Someone draped another sheet and said, "You're covered, honey." A firefighter turned to me. "Ma'am, can you ride to the ER or do you prefer to follow?" "I'll follow," I said. He gave the hospital name. The captain asked, "Any emergency contacts?" I thought of my son. A door swung shut. "Not yet," I said. "I'll handle it." They lifted the stretchers and began the careful descent. At the bottom, the gurneys clicked into place, legs snapping firm. The EMT said, "We're transporting now," and then, "You did right calling." I nodded. I didn't tell him what I hadn't done. As they rolled toward the ambulance, something on the hall table caught the porch light and flashed. A long legal envelope, the corner stamped with a notary's seal. I hadn't put it there. The flap was open. The bold line I could see read "Draft. Authorization." My breath did a small private trick. The captain called, "Watch your corners," and the medics loaded the gurneys, doors shutting with a thunk. Diesel growled. A firefighter coiled the last hose and stowed it. Neighbors folded back into their houses. Mrs. Whitman squeezed my arm and fetched her dish. I stood on my porch in the blown-out light, looking at that envelope like it could look back. My home was still, bright. The paper on the table was none of that. I stepped inside and felt my shoe stick where solvent had dripped. The house smelled like lemon cleaner, medicine, and Relief's metallic cousin. I reached for the envelope and paused, listening to the ambulance at the corner. The siren climbed, fell, and thinned. I slid the envelope free and turned it to the lamp. A draft, an authorization, a name I knew, and spaces waiting for signatures. I didn't open it yet. I placed it flat on the runner, put my palm on top to feel its heat, and looked at the door the medics had just used. I turned the porch light off and let the house go quiet around the truth. The house held its breath after the sirens thinned. I set the legal envelope in the middle of the dining table and sat. The lamp made a small circle. I slid a butter knife under the flap. Inside, a draft, a clipped stack, and a note. "Ray, tomorrow 10:30. Bring ID." Not just bodies, paper. I traced the title line. Authorization to add user or manager bank logo. My name is Alyssa M., and I am a section to grant her deposits, withdrawals, decisions, and online access. A second packet, LLC member action by written consent, the bakery's company name, a paragraph about transferring control due to unavailability. Unavailability. I tasted it. I am here, I thought, and set my hand down. I pulled our checkbook and laid a canceled check next to the draft. My signature looked the same, wide H, long tail. The draft's penciled rehearsal showed a narrow H and a stingy tail. Zeke is right-handed. When nervous, he drifts left. Alyssa's left-handed. The pencil line had a drag mark just past the O. Left-handed. Practiced. I took photos, each shot wide enough to catch the table. Behind the draft sat printed emails from Zeke's account. Ray's mobile notary, confirmed, tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Merchant Services update. Additional manager. Draft authorization. Fill before appointment. The footer had a number from the bank letter that came yesterday. My pulse ticked. Bodies tangle in the dark. Money and names live in daylight. I dialed the number on the bank letter. A rep answered. I gave my name, last four, passcode, and the year we opened the bakery account. "There's an unauthorized attempt to add a manager," I said. Keys tapped. "Final after in-person ID tomorrow," she said. "Online access then." "Who requested it?" "Initiated by E. Johnson," she said. "Note says primary is unavailable." My mouth went metallic. "I'm the primary. I'm not unavailable." "I can place a fraud alert and lock changes until you appear." "When do you open?" 8. I'll note it." "Is there a notary attached?" "External notary." "Add the note," I said. "Lock the changes." I thanked her by name because a person lowering a gate deserves to be called something real. When I hung up, the house ticked and sighed. The air held solvent from the porch. I pulled the hall cabinet bin, meds, old wallets, and under bandages, a spiral waited. I opened it to the middle, signatures, page after page of my name, in a hand that got closer, then farther, like a shy dancer. The H never widened. A smudge along the heel said what I knew. "Alyssa," my phone buzzed. "Deacon Ruth." "You okay? Saw lights?" I typed, "We're all right. Do we still use Ray's notary for church forms?" She replied, "Sometimes he's fast, parked once by Mr. Ray's truck. Different Ray." Not the neighbor, then. A service they both knew. I opened Zeke's old laptop, the one he never locked. The browser blinked awake with tabs. Ray's mobile notary, merchant services, articles of organization. An unsent draft. Ray, she doesn't check mornings. Meet at 10:30, get it done quickly. She'll sign later. I captured every page. I heard my mother the way I hear her when the house is quiet. Lay it straight, baby. If it's crooked, your plate will remind you all night. My plate had been reminding me. I pulled a folder. Bank letter, photos, the practice spiral, screenshots, the draft with its sorry pencil rehearsal. I added my birth certificate copy and the stamped LLC papers from the year I scraped enough tips to file them. I tucked in 3 canceled checks with my wide H. Evidence isn't for drama, it's for doors. I called Ray's mobile notary. He picked up. Ray speaking. I told him my name and address and that I'd found a draft authorization with my name on it for the morning. Silence, then neutral. Ma'am, I can't discuss client documents. I understand, I said. I'm the person whose name is being added without consent. Do not notarize anything with my name unless I am physically present. Another beat. That is our policy, he said. We require in-person ID and signature. Good. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're lying. Duly noted. When I hung up, the tremor released. Not just bodies, a blueprint, a transfer of keys, digital, legal, financial, across my table. I made a second folder labeled house and slipped in the bank letter. The notary appointment, 10:30, sat in my head like a tack. I wrote a schedule. Bank, 8:00 a.m. manager. Fraud alert. Attorney, call after the bank. Notary, confirm policy. Locks, rekey if needed. Alyssa, no entry. I stuck the note to the fridge where milk lives. I stood at the sink and ran water over my wrists until the heat left them. Through the window, I saw the track left on the walk. I pictured the bank doors opening, lobby AC all cool breath, a manager with forms, and me setting my file. One last check. I clicked the black light. A thin crescent on the velvet box glowed. Lift and set. I looked at the guest hook, at the missing key, at the dot that had kissed her skin earlier. The story was writing itself. I turned off the lights one by one, leaving the porch lamp on low. In the bedroom, the sheets lay flat and cool. No cinnamon. The silence was a clearing. I placed the folders in my tote and set my ID on top like a flag. Tomorrow would be counters, pens, and signatures that belonged to the hands that made them. I slid under the sheet and let one question rise, simple and exact. What else have they already moved with my name? Morning came clean and bright. I dressed for errands, dark slacks, no slip flats, a buttoned blouse. I put the 2 folders in my tote, slid my ID into the front pocket, and locked the door. The porch smelled like lemon cleaner. At the bank, the lobby AC hit my shins like lake water. The manager's nameplate said Marisol. She was young. How can I help you? She said. I need a fraud alert confirmed and a pending change locked. I said, and I'd like to sit away from the counter. She nodded and led me to a glass office. The bank smell settled. Name and passcode? I gave them. Her pen tapped. I see a pending manager addition for Alyssa M., she said, awaiting in-person ID this morning. You are the primary owner. I can place the hold we noted last night. Place it, I said. Also print the log of who initiated the request and when. She nodded, typing. The printer whirred. Pages slid. She handed me the stack face down. The report showed. Yesterday, 3:12 p.m. Online request by E. Johnson credentials. 3:19 supporting documents uploaded. 3:27 branch review auto-queued. 3:44 appointment scheduled with external notary. 7:55 p.m. System note. Fraud hold requested by customer. I found a tiny line. 9:21 a.m. Temporary address verification. Alternate email added. It matched Zeke's burner. Can that email be removed? I asked. She nodded, typing fast. 2-factor to text only? Yes, I said. My number, no codes to that email. She slid a form. Sign here. The clip of her pen fell without thinking. There's also an alert on your merchant profile, she said. The request would have allowed refunds and transfers. My stomach dropped and steadied. And now? Now it's frozen. Only you can change it. Please annotate that I did not authorize any new users, and that the notary is not to proceed without me present, she typed. Done. I can email a PDF. Print, I said. Paper behaves. Paper behaves, she said, sending the job to the printer. A man in a navy polo held the door, a machine guy by the look. He glanced at my folders, then at Marisol. They shared a quick nod. I caught my breath and kept moving. I drove to the bakery. The sign still needed a bulb. I unlocked the side door. Yeasty air rolled over me. I flipped the ledger lights on and pulled the last 3 months of bank statements, merchant reports, and payroll detail. Numbers tell the truth. I stuck a note. Don't chase. Confirm. Then I did what I've done for years, sorted, circled, and read line by line. 2 refunds stood out, Mondays at 8:12, same amount, to a prepaid card vendor I didn't know. The cashier's initials read AM. We don't have AM, only Alyssa. I pushed back and let the chair creak. I printed the daily closeout sheets for those dates. The signatures were neat, practiced. Halamo written twice in a hand like mine, holding its breath. The H was narrow. The tail was short. I pulled the camera feed for those Monday mornings. The angle is high and wide, but it shows who flips the sign, counts the drawer, and locks the safe. On both days, Zeke arrived first, 5 minutes early, a to-go coffee in his right hand. You can tell by the lid. He set the cup down, rubbed his left temple with 2 fingers, and unlocked the till. 10 minutes later, Alyssa came in. Gray hoodie, top knot, left hand hooked around her tote. She stood close to the counter camera. I printed stills and lined them up like dominoes left standing. At 10:03, my phone lit up. A text from an unknown number said, Ray here, confirming. Notary will require your presence and ID. Appointment canceled by requesting party at 9:58. I exhaled and realized I'd been holding half a breath. I thanked him and saved the text to the house folder. I called our accountant, Mrs. Alvarez, a woman who outlived 2 calculators in 1 marriage. Bring what you have, she said. I'll plug holes and circle sharks. Her voice was steady. I gathered statements, the report, the stills, and the cash-out sheets that pretended to be me. I slid them into plastic sleeves like tucking children into coats. Mr. Duncan peeked in the front. You open, Ms. H? Not yet, I said. Inventory day. He nodded and left. Mrs. Alvarez's office sits above a nail salon that smells like acetone and new beginnings. She wore readers on a chain and a sweater. She sat me in a chair that wheezed and laid out a green ledger pad. Tell me the story without thunder. I told you. The body part took 1 paragraph. The paper part took 10. I gave her the report, the stills, the refunds, and the fake signatures. She made small sounds, go on, and larger exhales. There it is. 2 campaigns, she said, tapping her pencil. Intimacy to distract, documents to extract, classic, sloppy. She pointed to the refunds. Prepaid card vendor shows up twice. That's a funnel. We'll subpoena if needed. How far did they get? I asked. She looked over her glasses. Far enough to make you doubt, not far enough to close it. She drew 3 boxes, bank, merchant, LLC. We lock these. Then we call your lawyer and decide who gets told what and when. She touched my forearm. You did right. Keep the light on it. People hide in the dark. Numbers hate light. In the stairwell, the nail polish smell said getting redone is loud, chemical, and sometimes needed. I sat in my car, folders on the passenger seat like 2 quiet witnesses, and looked at the list. The bank line had a check now. The notary line, too. The attorney's line waited its turn. One more thing before I drove. I opened my notes and wrote a question big enough to see. If refunds went out at 8:12, who unlocked the safe at 8:05? I circled it twice and felt the next door click. I sat in my car at noon, windows cracked, reading the fridge list again. Bank, checked. Notary, checked. Attorney, now. Mrs. Alvarez had sent a name. I called and got a same-day slot. The law office lived over a barber shop where clippers hummed like bees. My attorney, Caroline Mercer, shook my hand. Tell me what you need today, she said. I need boundaries that hold, I said. House business accounts served before sunset. We'll draft a temporary separation with occupancy terms, a no trespass for the bakery, and a cease and desist on signatures, she said. Do you want law enforcement at the handoff? I want witnesses, not cuffs. We'll use a neutral site. We built the fence. Keys returned on receipt. No access to floor, office, safe, or systems. No withdrawals or vendor changes. No new debt in the company name. No entry to the house without written consent and a witness. Personal items by appointment only. I added one more. Any notarized document with my name must include my live signature verified by ID. She nodded. Belt and suspenders. As she typed, I felt my breath line up with the rhythm of the keys. Decision, evidence, signature, like dough coming together under a steady hand. Grief kept trying to draft its own clause. I kept it in the margins. Paper first, tears later. The pen felt heavy in my hand in a good way, like a skillet that can't be knocked off the stove by accident. Do you want him out tonight? I pictured the porch lamp, the empty guest hook, the clean sheets that stayed clean. Yes, tonight. Church fellowship hall, 2 hours, she said. I'll bring a paralegal witness. Invite your deacon if you want the air civilized. I messaged Zeke and Alyssa. Meet at the church hall, 3 p.m. We're settling access and next steps. No threats. Let the papers speak. I called the locksmith from the fridge magnet and booked a rush recce after 4. At home, I walked room to room, making a plain inventory. TV, dresser, tools, mixer, safe. Not hoarding proof marking borders. I printed Caroline's packets, separation terms, no trespass, bank letter, and a 1-page conditions of access. I slid each into a sleeve and set 2 pens beside them. One clipped left, one clipped right. Hands tell truths, mouths postpone. Driving over, I rehearsed the short sentences I would allow. This is necessary. These are the rules. You will take your copy and go. Long speeches are for people auditioning for pity. I wasn't auditioning. I was posting signs. At 2/5, I parked at the church. I kept my jaw unclenched, steady. Ruth took my hands. I'm here, she said. Caroline arrived with a quiet paralegal. Zeke came 3 minutes late, hair damp from a sink wash, shirt buttoned one off. Alyssa followed, sunglasses on, hoodie sleeves to her knuckles. We'll keep this orderly, Caroline said. Mrs. Johnson will speak, then I'll outline terms, no debate. I spoke to the space between them, the place where a story either breaks or bends. This is about the house, the bakery, and the name, I said. The line sits here. Caroline summarized and slid conditions of access to Zeke first. Alyssa leaned forward. This is dramatic, she said, and this is necessary, I said. You're off the bakery system. You don't enter my home. You don't use my name. If you attempt my signature, you'll meet a deputy before a notary. Zeke swallowed. I'll get my stuff and go, he said. Caroline set both pens between them. Zeke took the right clip and signed the bakery, no trespass, sharp Z, flat bar on the K. Alyssa reached for the left clip, hesitated, chose the right anyway, then signed with her left wrist hooked, pulling the line into a shallow river. The paralegal went to the squeaky copier. Caroline slid the separation terms to Zeke. Review with counsel. Until then, the conditions apply. Keys, I said, palm out. He dropped 2, the house and the shop front. Other keys. Alyssa dug into her tote and produced a ring I'd never seen. 5 blanks, 1 fresh copy, 1 brass tag, stamped B107. What's B107? I asked. No answer. Caroline wrote the number on her pad. Ruth's eyebrow lifted. Copies landed warm on the table. Zeke slid his into a manila envelope and stood. You can go, I said. Pick up clothes tomorrow at 10 with the deacon present. 30 minutes, no bag bigger than a backpack. They left together, but not close. Ruth poured coffee. Caroline tapped B107. Storage, mailbox, unit. We'll find out. Alyssa's sunglasses sat on the chair, a faint smear on the inside of the left frame. My mind drew a map. Bank at 8, notary at 10:30, refunds at 8:12, safe at 8:05, and now a brass tag pointing to a door I hadn't opened. I want locks changed at 4, I said, and I want to know by sundown what B107 is. Caroline started a text. Ruth set a steady hand on my shoulder. I gathered my copies, slid them into my tote, and stepped into the heat. On my phone, I added a line under the list, B107, locate. I watched the letters until they steadied. What waits behind a door someone makes in secret, and who paid for the key? The locksmith arrived at 4 on the dot, a tidy man with a canvas bag that clinked. 3 cylinders, 2 deadbolts, he said, rolling out a mat under the door. Old keys came out, bright brass tongues I'd let too many people speak with. New cylinders slid in. When he tested the bolt, the click sounded like a yes. I paid and asked for 2 extra copies. He cut them in the van, shavings curling like gold threads. He handed me a sleeve with the keys and 1 warning. Don't hang these by the door, he said. Make the habit match the boundary. I tucked 1 into my wallet, 1 into a tin on the top shelf only I could reach. The 3rd stayed on my ring. The guest hook stayed empty. It could stay that way. With the house sealed, I went to the junk drawer. Every family's laziness in history. Batteries, rubber bands, and a single white glove. I pulled everything out and vacuumed the grit hiding in the corners. At the bottom, a folded receipt was taped to the wood. I peeled it free. Baylock storage. Unit B107. Auto pay set. Charge date. The same Mondays, our refunds had walked out the door. I laid the receipt beside the brass tag from Melissa's keyring. The font matched. The dash matched. A door existed. The question was what waited behind it, and who expected to claim it after I was labeled unavailable. I called the storage office. A young man answered. Baylock, this is Trent. I gave my name and the unit number and said I had a tag and a receipt, but no contract. I can't discuss a unit without the contract holder, he said, a person who had learned where the line sits. Understood, I said. I'm not asking for access. I'm asking how to flag a concern. Email a notice? The manager will review. If there's an attorney letter, we can put a temporary hold on change requests. Is there a prepaid card on file? I asked, thinking of Mondays and the vendor that kept repeating like an echo. We don't disclose funding sources. Thank you, I said. Expect a letter. I texted Caroline, Baylock Storage. B107, receipt and tag in hand. Boundaries don't appear. You build them screw by screw, clause by clause. Every click of a lock is a sentence I can live in. I kept asking myself, if they made a room for my things without me, what story did they plan to tell when they opened it? That question sat behind my ribs like a small box I refused to store off-site. She pinged back. I'll send a spoliation notice. Don't alter contents. Manager to hold. Subpoena tomorrow. Don't go alone. I won't, I wrote and meant it. The urge to drive there with a crowbar spiked and ebbed. I called Deacon Ruth. I need a witness and a steering wheel, I said. I'll be your witness, the steering you have, she said. 20 minutes later, we were in her sedan. The storage facility sat off the frontage road with a keypad that blinked for codes only. Trent turned out to be a college kid. I slid the receipt across and the brass tag beside it. I'm not the contract holder, I said. My business is paying for things that shouldn't be paid for. Here's my attorney's card. She'll send the notice. Please flag this unit. He looked at the tag, then at the card, then at Ruth. I can add a manager review note, he said. Before any code change or move out, the manager has to sign off. He typed. Done, he said. That's all I can do without paperwork. That's enough for tonight, I said. At the gate, I kept my hands still on my knees and let Ruth do the breathing for both of us. Watching the keypad blink reminded me that codes aren't promises. They're agreements that work until someone decides they don't. Tonight, the agreement held because I named it, and someone wrote it down. That used to be faith. Today it was paperwork, and that was good enough. On the way out, a woman in a dusty blue pickup fed her code into the gate. My breath went shallow until I saw the profile wasn't Alyssa's. Back home, I turned on the lights. I made tea I wouldn't finish and set it by the folders. I took out the copies from the church hall and stacked them square. The doorbell rang. It was the locksmith again. Almost forgot, he said. New key codes matching labels. He held up a plastic strip. House, front. House, back. Shop, front. If you label the keys, label the rules, he said. You're right, I said. Label the rules. After he left, I ran my blacklight along the places I'd started to trust again. The velvet box glowed. The guest hook shone blank. I called my son. I told him what he needed to know and spared him what would burn. You safe tonight? He asked. I am, I said. Doors rekeyed, boundaries served. Call if the wind changes, he said. I will. I sat with the tea until it went cold and the sun pulled the last color off the street. The porch light hummed low. The brass tag lay beside the storage receipt. I opened a sheet and wrote, Tomorrow. Bank council letter filed. Storage notice served. Subpoena requested. The list steadied me. In the bedroom, I pulled the sheet tight, just cotton and quiet. On the nightstand, I placed my new keys, face up, teeth showing. Before I turned off the lamp, I added one more line. Check Baylock camera policy. If the manager keeps logs, the 805 question might find itself an answer. I switched the lamp off and let the dark arrive on my terms. The house settled, the new deadbolt set. Tonight I kept the light. What story does a metal door tell when it rolls up, and how ready am I to hear it? When I finally locked my own doors and stood up straight in my own light, I understood the lesson. Boundaries aren't anger, they're love pointed inward. Proof matters, calm matters, and dignity is a decision you renew every day. I'm Halimo, 50 years old, and I learned that my name, my home, and my work are mine to guard, with clarity, not cruelty. Love without self-respect isn't love. It's a slow erasure. True freedom is the quiet click of a lock you chose, the steady pen on a line that belongs to you. And that's where I'll leave her story. Now, from me to you, if this moved you, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need the reminder. Drop a comment below and tell us, where is one boundary you're ready to set, and what will it protect in your life? Next time, we're exploring another true-to-life tale about secrecy, second chances, and the cost of silence, plus a simple framework to spot manipulation before it takes root. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of your light, take care of your name, and I'll see you in the next story.